How groups of people can work together on similar work but not function as a team. Today's 5 minutes short. Hi, I'm Joshua Barnes, and I'm joined by Al Shalloway. And right, this is something that is just it can be quite commonplace, right? How we've got people that come together, but they're still just individual contributors. They're still not communicating. They're still not providing visibility into their work, and it's a problem. It's a challenge.
Well, this we came up with this short because somebody asked me about it, and it's something I've seen a lot, and I think it's again one of these dysfunction that occurs to how you set up your teams and how people work together. And let's face it, a lot of developers like to work by themselves. I mean, I remember when I tried getting paired programming in uh, back, or I don't know, around 2000, 2001 when I first started doing it. People working together is like an anathema to a lot of people. In fact, I admit when I got into mathematics and programming because I didn't want to work with anybody. I loved working by
Right.
myself. I mean, keep them out of the door. I don't want them here. And I've had a personality change for a variety of reasons I won't go into, and I like working with people. But a lot of Scrum teams are like they end up taking stories and they get that story, then they take another story and they get that story, and there's no real built into the guide how to collaborate, how to cooperate with each other, and left to their own devices, a lot of teams just don't. And this
Right.
is one of the things where some guidance could be useful, to say, well, look, let's keep the number of open stories. One of the cool things about XP is you have the amount of work in process just by pairing,
Right.
because you are always going to have two people working together. And Scrum doesn't mention this. And it's something they should. How do you get people collaborating? So there's some lack of guidance is one thing, but there's another thing that's kind of missing. And the other thing is, what are you working on? In Scrum, the main artifacts are like, well, I got my sprint plan. That's not an artifact, but you get what I'm saying. I got, this is
You're
the
right.
big plan for the next 2 weeks. And then you mostly have stories that you've gotten by breaking up features and stuff. So you got all these little pieces that are somehow tied to the sprint plan. And a good thing to add into Scrum is really focus on getting features done. So if I got this big plan, let's make sure we get all the stories for this feature, then all the stories for this feature, and all the stories for this feature. It works much better. Teams eventually figure this out, but Scrum uh, prides itself on being intentionally incomplete instead of like giving you the information you need at the right time without overloading you. So that's a little good trick. Have, even if they're working independently, have people work on finishing features. Another trick is to, when you finish a story, instead of opening another one, look to see if you can help somebody else
Yeah.
finish their story. There are all sorts of ways to do cooperation and getting people to work together. But if you look at most like daily stand-ups, you have, well, here's what I did. Here, listen to it. Here's what I was working on. Here's what I was blocked with. Here's what I'm going to work on. I's in there a lot.
Yep.
In Kanban, we usually do is you have a board, you navigate the board. Here's what we're working on. Here's what's blocked. Here's what we're going to do. It's we. Very, very important thing. So what you need to do is create this we concept, and that's a focus on the work. We're working on this work, whereas Scrum focuses on the stories and who's doing what.
Hmm.
And part of this is this belief that, in fact, you can have some explicit conversation about how we work together. And I don't really know if Ken changed his mind, but over a decade ago, he vilified Dave Anderson and me for having explicit workflow, for explaining you needed to have explicit workflow. And I think it was a misunderstanding of the idea. But see, the idea of explicit workflow is not to say this is what you're going to do. It's rather, these are the agreements we've made with each other. We want to make those explicit, not to follow, but as the best way to discuss how we're working together. So that's what's necessary. How are people going to work together? Talk about how people are going to work together. Make it explicit, not in concrete. Just state what it is. That's where cooperation comes from. And you could easily add this to Scrum. It's not that Scrum tells you not to, it just doesn't tell you what to do. So
Yeah.
quick rule of how to do this better. Look for ways people can cooperate with each other. Focus on finishing. After you've finished something, focus on finishing the next thing. see how to work with other people, make your agreements explicit. There are lots of ways. Otherwise, you get a lot of eyes. And just making the work board explicit so you can say, here's our work, here's how it's moving, and you talk about it from a we instead of an I will make a big difference.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for attending this 5-minute short, whether you're here live or you're watching it on replay. If you have any questions or thoughts or how you've seen some additional things to help people function more of a team, post it on the LinkedIn message, and we'll see you on our next 5-minute short.
Take care.